This is Jay Mancini, where we keep the wheels rolling and the cash flowing. And guys, today we're gonna be talking about one thing that people ask me all the time. What type of dump truck should I buy? Yes, what kind? There's so many things to cover, guys. The right type of dump truck, but you got brands, make, models, specs. So today, I'm gonna be sharing with you what I would suggest and what I've bought in the past and what I've found works the best for me. Before we dive in, guys, I hear something. Oh, that's Mr. Subscribe right there. He's just reminding me, guys, that majority of you guys watching the content that we deliver, I thank you guys for dropping the comments, but he's just reminding me that a lot of you guys are not subscribing. So guys, I wanna give you the most valuable possible, but just show us some love and hit the subscribe button. Subscribe, right? Yeah, that's what he said. Subscribe. So guys, let's dive in on what is the right type of dump truck. And I'm gonna tell you what I've learned from my experiences, and I'm also gonna give you my suggestions. So guys, they ask me all the time, what brand, what model do you suggest? So guys, throughout the years that I've been in business, I'm gonna talk about some of the brands and some of the models that I've owned and that have gotten the job done for myself. However, I want you to know these particular models or brands, don't limit yourself, because really what it boils down to, guys, is the way that the truck is spec'd. And I will talk about the specs. So make sure you stick to the end of the video, because the specs are actually more important than the brand or the model of the dump truck. And also, as you already know, I have a bonus tip for you. So make sure you stick to the end of the video. So guys, as far as brands, these are some of the brands that I've owned and I've been pretty satisfied with, okay? The first one is the KW or Kenworth, okay? I've had T800s and I've had also T880, which is a relatively new model, okay? And again, I'm gonna get to the specs, so make sure you hang tight, because that is the most important part of the video. And then you have your Peterbilts. Peterbilts are also great trucks. They're mainly known for over the road, but yes, they can make a great dump truck. Okay, and you have the 357, 367, some of the newer models like the 567. These trucks are all pretty good models. Then you also have the Mack. Now, if you don't already know, the Mack is originally known for being a dump truck. Okay, so I've had a Mack in the past. I've actually had several Macks in the past, and I'm gonna tell you something. Mack is one of my favorite trucks only because they come already built. If you get the right model, they already come built, spec'd to be a dump truck. In other words, they're born a dump truck. So I love Mack as well. One of the models that I like is the Granite. There's an older model, the CH613, that I've also owned. That's a pretty good model. And then I've also had International. Now, I've had some of the older models, guys. They're not even around anymore. I know the newer models, the HV, HX series. Now, I don't own those personally, but again, don't limit yourself to these particular brands or these particular models. These are just some of the models that I've owned that have worked for me. But now we're gonna get to the most important part, which is the specs. Now, guys, keep in mind, once again, there's a lot of other brands out there, right? There's a lot of other models or makes out there, right? But again, this is why it's important, and I'm gonna cover the specs of the truck. Why? Because there's some brands that I don't have here, and they may be spec'd out to be a good dump truck. So again, here we go. Let's get into the specs. So the first thing, guys, is the engine. And you've probably already heard me talk about this before. Yes, the engine, it's a vital part of the truck, right? It's probably the most important part. And people ask me all the time, Jay, so what do you think? What kind of horsepower should I get in a dump truck? Well, guys, let me tell you, it depends on what kind of dump truck, right? But here you go, guys. If you're just starting off with a regular tandem dump truck, 350 HP or higher, it should be more than enough. So guys, remember, a tandem dump truck, 2 axles in the back, or you can also watch a video that we did, Dump Truck Buying 101. In that video, we explain the different type of dump trucks and the axles. We get into more details, so make sure you check the video. Now, if you're gonna be buying a triaxle, a quad, or even a super dump, I recommend you buying a truck that has 400 horsepower or higher. Now, a lot of those model trucks usually have like a 430, a 475, a 500 horsepower. Again, anything that's over a triaxle, a quad, or a super dump, I would suggest 400 horsepower or higher. The next vital part of a dump truck, the transmission. Now, I will tell you this, guys, from experience, my personal favorite is the 8 low. Now, I found it to be, for myself, what works best, especially here in the greater Houston area. We get a lot of rain, guys, and I don't know where you're located, but let me tell you something. 8 low just happens to have that power, and guys, let me tell you, that's what's worked best for us. However, a 10-speed, a 13-speed may also do the job wherever you're located. Now, guys, I'm gonna also mention the following. I've heard a lot about automatic transmissions. I gotta be very open and sincere with you. I do not know a whole bunch about the automatic transmissions. Now, I can tell you what I have heard, which is mixed. I've heard some good, I've heard some bad. Now, one of the things I've heard from several of the guys that have bought some of the automatic transmissions is the Allison transmission seems to be the one that gets the most positive feedback. But once again, guys, I personally don't own any dump trucks with an automatic transmission. I'm kind of the old school, if that's what you want to call it, 8 low or a 10-speed. But again, I have heard some good positive feedback on the Allison automatic transmission. That leads to the following, guys. Front axle and rear axles. Let me explain to you the difference. If you're going with a tandem dump truck, all you may need is 12,000 to 16,000 weight capacity, meaning 12K to 16K. Now, keep this in mind, guys. That's a tandem, right? Just a tandem dump truck. However, if you're gonna do something like a triaxle, a quad, or a super dump, my suggestion for the front axle would be a 20,000 pound or higher, meaning a 20K or a 22K. The reason why I suggest a 20,000 or 22,000 pound front axle is the following, guys. When you're loading and you're getting 20 tons or 18 tons or even 22 or even 24, 25 tons, you're gonna need a higher bearing weight front axle, meaning that 20K or that 22K is what I would suggest. Now, as for the rear axle, guys, just as important as the front axle, again, we gotta remember weight bearing here, okay? Rear axle, again, if you're gonna run a tandem dump truck, you probably don't need a real heavy duty. I would suggest 40,000 pounds, but of course, anything higher would be great. However, if you're gonna be hauling on a triaxle, a quad, or a super dump, I definitely suggest 44,000 pound or higher weight bearing rear axle. Now, guys, what I personally run on my bigger trucks, my super dumps, is 46,000 pound rear axle. Why? Because once again, guys, on my super dump, we actually haul 25 tons. So I want to make sure that my rear axle can sustain that weight. And why do I recommend this, guys? Let me just tell you, I've heard some of the guys in the past that they have a quad or a super dump, guys, and the truck is spec'd for only 36K or 40K in the rear axle, and guess what happens, guys? Suspension problems. Why? Because the truck is not naturally spec'd to sustain that particular amount of weight. So again, that's why it's important. Your rear axle, just like your front axle, has to have the right type of weight capacity. So guys, if you didn't already guess, yes, that leads to the following things. Suspension, right? Very important, guys, especially in a dump truck. Why? Because you probably already know you're not always gonna be running on the road. You're probably gonna be doing some off-road, right? You never know if you're going to a job site, and let's say you're going onto what I like to call brand new ground where they're breaking the ground, and then all of a sudden you get in a scenario where it rained the day before, or it might have rained 2 or 3 days prior, and you may think it's dry when you go out there, and then guess what? Underneath, the ground is still wet. So it's important, guys, for you to have a good suspension. And where I'm going with this, guys, my suggestion and what's worked best for me is a leaf spring suspension. Yes, leaf spring suspension. Now, there's also air ride suspension. Some people like the air ride suspension, okay? And I understand it may be more comfortable, right? Naturally air ride. However, in the dump truck world, guys, leaf spring is the best thing to do, and it's one thing I would highly suggest. Some of the leaf spring suspensions are your Hendrickson, Chambers, and Camelback, and there's a few more to mention, but guys, let me just tell you, one of the things that can happen, okay, and I'm just gonna give you here a quick story, and I've seen this happen, okay? We've gone out there on the job site, and again, here in Houston, it rains a lot. And so we'll go out on a job site, and I've seen it where these guys go out there and they have an air suspension. And guess what happens, guys? They get onto what I like to call loose ground or wet ground, and all of a sudden, you see that truck just sink left, sink right, or sink in or sink down, right? And now they got an issue, okay? Because now the truck is stuck, and now they got to get pulled out. It creates a mess. So what I'm saying to you guys is leaf spring suspension is the best way to go. It's just a heavier duty application, and it can also help prevent that truck from getting in that situation where it's gonna either get stuck or, it may happen a breakdown a lot sooner, because again, your air ride suspension, it's a good suspension, right? If you're doing over the road, and it's also more comfortable. But again, keep in mind, in the dump truck business, you're probably gonna be doing a lot of off-road, and that's the reason why I like the leaf spring suspension system. And that, guys, leads to the following that works hand in hand with the suspension and the transmission, the rear end. Yes, guys, rear end is very important as well, because once again, just like us here, where it rains a lot in the greater Houston area, you need a rear end that's gonna have that power, okay? If you get in a bad situation and you get out there and the ground is wet, you're gonna want a rear end that has some power. What I would suggest is a 4:10 ratio or higher. By the way, guys, if you're finding this video valuable, don't forget, subscribe. The next thing, guys, is the chassis. Now, the chassis, a lot of people don't actually think about this, but let me tell you guys, most of your over the road or the trucks are usually just built with a single chassis. Now, a single chassis is okay if you're just buying like a regular tandem dump truck. Again, you're probably not gonna be hauling a whole bunch of weight if you're in a tandem dump truck. So a single chassis will get the job done. However, guys, what I recommend and I suggest, if it's a single chassis, it's a heavy duty single chassis. And yes, guys, there's a difference, okay? So make sure that you look at the chassis and you will be able to tell one's significantly thicker than the other. Now, the next thing is a double frame or double chassis, and that is the best for a dump truck. Especially if you're gonna be on a tri, a quad, or a super dump, I would highly recommend the double frame or the single heavy duty frame. And now, guys, let's get to one very important, I like to call it crucial component, the dump body, okay? A lot of people out there have different types of dump bodies, and let me tell you, there's quite a bit of dump bodies out there, meaning there's an aluminum dump body, okay? There's a steel dump body, but then there's a Hardux dump body, meaning thicker gauge, thicker steel, okay? And some people don't know that there's a difference. They see a dump body and they're like, okay, this is just a steel dump body. Well, yes, however, there's a difference, okay? Some of those dump bodies are thicker than others. And let me tell you the difference, okay? The thicker the steel, in other words, the gauge on that dump body, one, the longer it's gonna last you, so you get more bang for your buck, keeping things simple. The other thing, guys, is you're able to haul more materials, meaning you got more options. And let me tell you a quick story. We were on a job site here recently, and guess what happened, guys? One of my guys shows up with his aluminum dump body on his dump truck, and he thought he was gonna come and load dirt. Well, the contractor changed things on us on the last minute, meaning he changed things while we were on the job. And he said, hey guys, we have an emergency. We're not gonna be able to load dirt anymore. I need you guys to haul this concrete. Well, guess what happened, guys? He wasn't able to continue working. Why? Because he had an aluminum dump body, meaning the following. If the contractor would have loaded his dump truck with that concrete, you know what would have happened? His aluminum bed would have gotten damaged, right? And obviously he's not gonna want that. So yes, you probably already guessed it. He had to go home, that was it. He had to call it a day because his aluminum body or aluminum dump body is not designed for concrete. So one of the things I highly suggest, guys, depending on what kind of materials you're gonna haul, okay, do not limit yourself. You wanna make sure you have several options. So what I would highly suggest is definitely having a steel body so that you can haul dirt, sand, gravel, asphalt, concrete. Now, if you can find a dump truck that has what I like to call the heavy duty gauge dump body, or the hard ox like 450, or even a round dump body, okay? Especially if it has the high lift gate, okay? That's called a demo dump body. Those are the best options because you can haul anything. Now guys, as I've told you already, the main thing are the specs: the engine, transmission, front axle, rear axle, suspension, rear end, chassis, dump body. But guys, I got some bonus material, and if you're still watching this video, these are the 3 things it boils down to. Number 1, guys, the truck condition, meaning what condition is the truck in? Because brands and models can vary. Specs, as you already know, are very important, but even more important, or just as important as the specs, is the condition of the truck. Meaning, if you're out there and you're gonna buy a dump truck and it meets all the specs, and you may like the brand and you may like the model, but the condition of the truck is not in the shape or condition it should be, guess what, guys? None of this really matters. And where I'm going with this is the following, guys, okay? I've bought some older trucks in the past, and this is what it boils down to, guys. If the condition of the truck is in good condition, number 1 thing, guys, is you're gonna get what I like to call the proper value. So yes, it's important that the truck is spec right, but again, what condition is the truck in? And if you want to know more on what to look for and making sure that truck's in good condition, check out the following video, the ultimate dump truck buying guide. And buy a dump truck like a pro. The second thing it boils down to, guys, the price, the cost of the truck. So are you getting a good deal, guys? Because ultimately, if the condition is good and you're getting a good price on the truck, now we're in good shape. So one of the things, guys, when I first started, especially for you guys that are just getting into the dump truck business or even looking to buy a dump truck, one thing that was very helpful was buying a truck at the right price. Why? Because, guys, when I first started, I really didn't have any money to buy a dump truck, right? I couldn't afford to go out there and buy a $100,000 or $200,000 dump truck. And to be sincere with you, I didn't even have enough money to put $40,000 or $50,000 down on a dump truck. So I had to start what I like to call from the bottom, right? I had to start from the very beginning stage. So I had to buy a truck, a very inexpensive truck, but guess what, guys? I bought it for the right price. So it ended up actually being a good starter dump truck. And that's why paying the right price is very important, especially if you're new or just getting started. And number 3, guys, the type of work or materials you're gonna haul. Now, you've probably heard me say this before if you watched some of my previous videos, but I have to say it again, guys. It's very important because yes, this actually plays a big role on what type of truck you're gonna buy. And the reason why, guys, I'll tell you some of the experiences that I've had in the past and what I've seen from other guys in the business, okay? I've seen some guys that go out there and buy a truck. For instance, a guy that I know, when he first got into the business, he bought this Peterbilt. Now, it was a really nice looking truck. I gotta tell you, from the outside, the truck looked great. It was in good condition. However, guys, one thing that he did not know, being new to the business, is that he needed enough horsepower. He ended up buying a Caterpillar C7, meaning the dump truck was a Peterbilt, but it had a Cat C7. What is a C7? To keep things simple, guys, it's a very small engine. So yes, he was able to go out there and do some work. However, guys, he was having an issue because every time this guy would get loaded with more than 14 or 15 tons, guys, his truck would struggle. Well, quite naturally, having a very small engine, guys, played a big role, meaning he didn't buy the right type of dump truck or the dump truck with the right type of engine in there, right? Why? Because he wasn't thinking, hey, I'm gonna be hauling 14, 15 tons, so I need an engine that has enough power to haul 14 or 15 tons. And that's one of the reasons why knowing the type of work you're gonna be doing and the kind of materials you're gonna be hauling, right? If you're just gonna be doing something like hauling 12 tons or 10 or 11 tons, you might not need to have all the specs that I covered, okay? But if you're gonna be hauling 15, 16, 17, 18, or 20 tons, that's when all these specs start to definitely play a big role. So once again, guys, the type of work, the materials, how much material you're gonna haul, all plays a big factor between the brands, the specs, the truck. Again, three things: the condition of the truck, the price of the truck, knowing the type of work and the materials you're gonna haul, and how much materials to haul. Guys, I wanna give a special recognition, especially to you guys that have been reaching out to us, leaving comments, following us, also the guys that went on the live. We thank you guys. And here's what we're gonna do, guys. We're gonna be recognizing some of you guys. We're gonna be doing the recognition of the week. And what you need to do, guys, is simple. 1, you need to subscribe. 2, you need to drop a comment. And 3, follow me on Instagram, Jay_, my last name, Mancini, Mancini. And guys, if you go on Instagram, do a story, tag me, and I'm gonna repost it. And hopefully we'll be talking about you in the next video as the subscriber of the week. Your story can be simple, guys. It could be you maybe studying for your CDL, or maybe you're on a job site, or maybe you're looking to buy a dump truck, or you're riding with a friend and he's got a dump truck, whatever it is, guys. So as long as you tag me and you get chosen, guys, you could be the subscriber of the week. This is Jay Mancini, where we keep the wheels rolling and the cash flowing. We'll see you on the next one.